You're listening to the DreamApp podcast. My name is Jesse Lyon, Chief Dream Scientist at DreamApp, and today we're joined by the Truth Doctor, Dr. Courtney Tracy. She's an award-winning mental health counselor and social media influencer with over 1.8 million followers on TikTok. She is on a mission to normalize that mental health is a part of being human, and she's open about her experience of borderline personality disorder, ADHD, and anxiety. On this episode, we talk about how she experiences the symptoms of borderline personality and how, because of this, she experiences her dreams differently as well. We even find answers for a dream that she's had since she was 13 years old. So let's get into it. So welcome. Today I'm joined by Dr. Courtney Tracy at The Truth Doctor, who is well known online. Oh my gosh, I feel like every time I see you or meet with you, you're winning some other award at some VidCon or some mental health conference for the amazing work that you do. And sometimes even getting a little controversial because you put it all out there. You are very open about your mental health, your diagnosis, and really kind of confronting the blank slate that most therapists think they need to have, like not showing their feelings and not being honest about themselves. And you confront that head on. So welcome, Dr. Courtney Tracy, to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I definitely push the limits, that's for sure.
Yeah, I kind of want to start there. Like, where does that come from for you? Like pushing that limit. Is there something that started that journey or that realization of like, wow, we need to change the way that therapists are doing therapy?
I mean, I kind of have just felt like I've needed to change something about my environment my whole life. So even when I
Mm.
was just recently diagnosed with ADHD combined type, and they tell me that I've had it since I was a kid. So I think one that contributed a lot to my later diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. But even when I was young, I always felt like I don't think that I need to change. I think something else needs to change about my environment. And so I've kind of just had that mindset forever. And it's always been to try to benefit myself and the people around me. So,
Yeah, well, trying to benefit people around you by being honest about yourself. Because you,
mhm.
like, I don't know, just the conversations that I have, the burden of responsibility is usually always, well, you need to change. Everyone else does it this way, so you need to be different. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why are we assuming that? Like, why are we saying that that needs to change? And so you're kind of confronting that, at least as, a big part of what I get from your platform.
Yes, exactly. That is a huge part of it. I think it started off initially psychoeducation, like most people on the internet that are trying to share something that they know that they want others to know as well. But then it quickly shifted to I'm just going to start telling the truth about myself because I feel like that's more important. Like anybody can share the education. Well, not anybody, but people qualified to share it. But nobody could share my unique story and the effect that it might have on the people around me.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to
Mhm.
Google something, like I can go read a PubMed article. Like, that's not
Right.
that's not why I'm here.
Exactly.
I'm here for the relationship, and the research so supports that. Like it's all about the relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm. Are there when you talk to people, are there certain things that I guess like old school therapy, I don't know if we want to call it that or what, but like the previous generation of therapists are concerned about, like why are they so hesitant about sharing?
I mean, it makes sense. We learn disclosure and boundaries on purpose. And I feel like that's because it keeps the client safe and it keeps the therapist safe. It keeps the therapist safe because we just deserve to have privacy. And it
Mm.
keeps the client safe because they deserve the majority of the time in the session, if not all of the time in the session, because it's their money, their time, their energy, and that we need to make sure that they're making progress. So there is a good reason to not self disclose. But I would say
Mm.
that the field really took it too far in that sure, don't self disclose it, don't take up the session when you're in session with a client. But then we started applying that to therapists overall. You can never share anything personal about yourself anywhere. You must always look and act and sound like a therapist. And we don't learn that in other professions, and it doesn't even make sense in other professions. It just simply makes sense, I would say, in the medical field or the mental health field because we as human beings are uncomfortable by those things, those aspects of ourselves we typically look at when there's something wrong. And so we don't want people in those fields acting like there's something wrong with them, because then some people would say
Mm.
that it depletes the trustworthiness or the level-headedness of the career, when that doesn't do that at all or imply that at all.
Hmm. Yeah, why do they think that it would affect the trustworthiness of the professional if they're kind of disclosing and if they're honest about like their own mental health problems? Because I mean, mental health is health. Like we all need to pay
Right.
attention to our minds and care for ourselves. So why what's the possibility that it would do?
That's a great question. And so, yeah, the only answer I could possibly come up with is that human beings are judgmental. And just it's
Oh.
just a fact. And so what that could actually do in turn is turn people away from getting therapy. So it's as easy as somebody going to one therapist, they don't know anything about therapy, and they were raised super Christian, for example, but it was very traumatizing for them. And then they go to a therapist, they don't inquire anything about that therapist, and that therapist immediately starts talking about, really intense fundamental Christian beliefs in the first session. And then that person goes, "Oh man, I am never going to see a therapist again." And so we really want to appear unbiased. But what I think people don't understand is that no human being on the planet can be unbiased. We all have opinions and judgments. And even in the field of therapy, there's bias, I guess you could say. Like there's specifically LGBTQ therapists, there are Christian therapists, there are sex therapists that allow or believe in sex before marriage. And so there are opinions. And I think that we're realizing more and more that therapists are human, and everyone's a human, and we all have opinions, and it's okay to be honest about what those are, be honest about what we've been through, and create a clientele and an environment that's applicable to who we are and who we can best serve.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're really choosing a relationship to engage in rather than just choosing someone to provide a therapy. It's like I don't know,
Mhm.
as long as a doctor's gone through medical school, I can generally trust them to set my arm and put it in a cast. I don't need to know your personality or what you do on the weekends, your favorite football team for you to set
Right.
my arm. But as a therapist, I mean, you really are choosing a therapist to engage in a very intimate personal relationship with. Now, the therapist is responsible for those boundaries, right? And
Mhm.
responsible to make sure to protect the client and their time. But there's kind of, there needs to be an acceptance of we're going to be relating human to human. It's not
Right.
just this sterile, cold, I'm going to do the therapy procedure to you
Right.
now and you will be
Exactly.
fixed. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Right.
I
Right.
like it. I like it. Well, and so a lot of what you share is, like you even shared already, diagnosis of ADHD and a diagnosis of borderline personality. Do
Mhm.
you get a lot of feedback from that? Like, do people kind of like harp on you about being so open and vulnerable, or has it generally been pretty receptive?
I think it's generally been pretty receptive. Actually, I don't think I know. And I actually feel like I found myself in a really interesting position, because
Mm.
there was already such a stigma about borderline personality disorder that I think when most people found my platform, they initially did not know that I was diagnosed with it. Maybe they just didn't see the video or the post. And when they find
Ah.
out, they are already so connected with me or impressed with me or inspired by me that they automatically become open to the idea that perhaps people with this diagnosis are not the way I used to think that they were. And I also have been on the platforms for being on a platform for 3 years as a therapist open about borderline personality disorder and not getting burnt out by it and not getting chased away. I feel like that's also proof, and continuing to be honest that whole time. It's proof that, I'm not lying about the fact that I have it, and I'm not lying about the fact that I'm stable while having it. I'm open and honest about every up and down that I have. So at times people would say, "Are you sure that you have it? Like you just seem," and that's the stigma talking. And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah.
And if you go back to 3 weeks ago, I'm talking about how one of my symptoms came up and how I got through it. And that's, I explain it in a way where I'm trustworthy. I'm telling the truth as the truth doctor. And I think that's really enlightening for people.
Yeah, well, you're really consistent. Your message doesn't change, and so it shows an authenticity. Like, I'm not just making this up for like a
Yeah.
video or a show. Like, this is really me, and it's always gonna be me. I mean, not that you are your diagnosis, but it's just like I have a personality, and I'm showing you my real personality. I'm not
Right.
making this up. And so I guess I don't know. There's a little frustration even in me of like just that assumption that if you're diagnosed with something, well, you couldn't be successful. You couldn't do these things.
Mhm.
You can't have, you can't be on social media and create a successful career over the past 3 years, and even longer. That really does show the bias, doesn't it?
It really does. And I've gotten messages from people that I've only gotten actually one negative message from someone, and they weren't even directly addressing that I had borderline. They were basically just addressing the stigma. It was a therapist, a fellow therapist, who
Of
I
course,
said,
of course.
I know. And I said something, I really don't remember what it was. Or maybe I think this person had commented something and it was very rude. And not to me, I think just about the population I was speaking of. I don't think it was borderline. And she DM'd me, direct messaged me, and said, just so you know, me and my other therapist friends only follow your account because we enjoy seeing when your borderline symptoms come up because we don't think you're recovered at all. And I was like, "What the
Oh,
hell?" Yeah. So then I decided
oh,
to
that's
share that
nasty.
story. Yeah, so I shared that story on my platform in a reel, and
I
they
get
got
shivers.
to see all the comments of all the people from the BPD community, from the clinician community going, "How could somebody say that?" And I didn't out who they were, but I wanted them to see the response from, like, the
Hope
hundreds of
so.
thousands of people who go on my platform and feel differently than what they said.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh. Oh, it makes my shoulders go up near my ears. I'm like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. Mhm. Well, so I'm excited to have you here to kind of talk about some of these things openly. Because as you know, like my focus of my page has been very much on dreams and dream interpretation. We've got DreamApp and all the things that we're doing with that platform and, with helping people use their dreams as a tool for their mental health growth. And so, one of the things that I'm interested to talk about is not having that diagnosis and having a different personal experience. There are some pretty good research articles out there, and there's some pretty good studies about sort of the way that someone with that diagnosis will experience dreams and nightmares and sleep in general. And so I wonder if you could talk about, do you notice any differences for you when you're talking with friends or talking with clients about how you experience sleep and dreams differently because of just your own personality?
Definitely. Well, I think even outside of just, understanding that mental health does affect my clients, right, when it comes to their sleep for sure. But I think
Yeah.
just, one example is I've been with my husband for 17 years. So, and we've been like sleeping in the same room or bed for that long. And so I have very intimate and long term experience with another human being's sleep cycle, like more so than I think somebody would at the age of 32. That's like an entire adult, like
Wow. Yeah.
17, almost
17
18
years at
years.
the age of 32. That's a lot of formative years.
Right, exactly. And so I've been and this man knocks out like instantly. I mean, he's a very active person, but he's out, he's asleep, he can stay asleep, he can have normal dream cycles and feels well rested when he wakes up, and I have never felt that way in my life.
God, you
And
gotta
I
hate that,
actually
right? Like, how come? Oh, you just lay down on the pillow, you're
yeah.
out. It's like,
Yeah,
son
and,
of
like,
a
he could
gun.
take naps and sleep on planes and in cars, and I can't do any of that.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so, yeah, I just know that for me, my sleep has been really affected even from when I was a child, and I just recently
Mm,
started taking, SSRIs and another type of medication for short term because I just wasn't doing too well a little while ago, and I needed that boost
yeah.
to kind of increase the coping skills, and I'm finally starting to dream again for the first time, and I think it's because, one of the medications is for anxiety, so it's just more regulated. I can sleep better at night now. Um,
Wow.
so
Okay.
so but what's interesting, and I'm glad to be on this podcast because the same dreams that I used to have when I was a teenager are happening again. And I
They're coming
haven't really
back.
dreamed in like probably over a decade, at least not anything I can remember. And it's the same dreams, the same two dreams that I have always had. It's so weird.
Whoa. Yeah, that is kind of strange. I mean, it's not strange from like a study perspective, but like that must be a strange experience. Like what you're describing happens to very many people, but it's like when you've not dreamed for 10 years and then you start like right back where you left off, you're like, what's going on
Yes.
here? It's like Twilight
Yeah.
Zone.
I was like, why and how and why? I like it was so
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things. Just one thought that pops into my head first is a lot of people on my page will tell me that I don't dream, which we know from the science, from the research, is not totally the right way to think about it. Everyone dreams. If you sleep, you go through the REM cycle, and we used to even think that dreams only came from REM sleep. But actually, now we're finding as we wake people up in different stages and ask them if they dreamed, we dream in both REM and non-REM sleep. So if you're sleeping, you're dreaming, and we can see that with brain imaging. What typically happens though is because dreams come from the unconscious part of the brain, just like your unconscious is showing, like your podcast. Um, it can be difficult to transfer them into conscious thought. So when you wake up, it's kind of difficult to hold those memories and thoughts with you. It's
Mm.
kind of like when I ask you to think about like your 8th birthday or 7th birthday. Most people can't remember that. It's like it's very emotional. It's kind of before, your conscious mind really developed. It's in childhood. And so it's difficult to really hold on to those memories and bring them into conscious awareness. Same thing happens with dreams. So research shows 90% of dreams are forgotten within the first 10 minutes of waking up. And that's
Hmm.
very, very common. So most people who say they don't dream, it's actually because of that.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if that's kind of playing a role in what you're experiencing too.
I mean, yeah, it might. I definitely know that we could dream without being aware of it. I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just knowing now, being able to remember and feeling like I'm in the experience of it is so unique. And yeah, I don't know. I feel weird. I mean, I'm still kind of tripping out on the fact that I'm getting normal sleep again and I'm having these same
Wild.
dreams. So I feel like I'm just stuck on it because it's like, and if I have been dreaming this whole time, have I been having the same dream this whole time? The same few dreams, and like now I'm just remembering them again? And if so, why are these specific dreams so ingrained in my brain and coming up so often?
It's a good question. It's a good question. My thought would be probably yes, probably been the same dreams. But dreams are kind of funny because dreams come from the emotional parts of our brain. So you probably have very many dreams throughout the night, but the ones that are easiest to recall are the ones that are the most emotionally intense. So you probably have more than just these two types of dreams you're talking about, but these ones are so loud, it's hard to hear the other ones below the surface. So that's kind of my thought. And you can start to remember these dreams because if you get good sleep, your sleep is your dreams are less fragmented, your sleep is less fragmented. So it's easier to pull those memories with you upon waking up. So if you're taking new medication, you're getting good sleep finally. I mean, praise God. Thank you. I'm really glad sleep is important.
Yes,
Um, that's probably why you're able to remember them now.
probably. That makes a lot of sense. This is actually extremely helpful. I know like
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
about sleep or dreams.
Well, I mean, it's it's hard when you're not getting good sleep to really, understand what's going on. Like
Yeah,
about your sleep. It's like I couldn't teach you how to play basketball because I can't play basketball.
good point.
Yeah. So now I'm super curious. What are these two dreams that are recurring both from like childhood and now? And I guess start with like when did you first have these dreams?
I first had the first dream that I'll talk about when I think I was 13 or 14. And the second one was actually when I was 15 or 16. So they both occurred around the same time. The first one is one that and okay, it frightens me. And here's the thing, this is something super interesting.
Okay.
For the majority of my life, this dream always stopped at the same point. And now that I'm remembering my dreams
Mm.
again, it's progressing in a very
Ooh,
strange way after
that's a
all
good
this
sign.
time. Yeah, so the first dream is like really messed up. So it's like somehow I have murdered someone, like some woman, some like older woman, not old, but like older than me at the time. So she was just like probably my age when I was like a teenager. I don't know who
Okay.
she is, and I got worried that I was going to get caught. And so I buried her
Ooh.
behind my toilet wall in my house.
Oh, that's so
And
good.
like, but what I'm appreciative is that I don't remember killing her, and I don't remember like pulling the body or any of this like weird stuff that you would like definitely not want to remember. But I know that that had happened, and so and then I like wake up just in like sheer anxiety that did it really happen, and am I going to get caught one day?
Yeah.
And so it would happen again and again and again. And now I'm at the point where now like the police have come to my house like just in the last few
Oh,
weeks in
so it's
this
progressed.
dream.
This is the progression.
Yes, and
Okay.
now like and they look in the one spot that I think is where her body is supposed to be, and there's nothing there. So I didn't do it. And it took me like 15
Whoa.
years to like have my dream get to that point, like literally. And so that's like absolutely wild. And so that one feels like it's on its way to getting resolved. I haven't really like gone back to it or know that I've gone back to it to know if like I just move on with my life or something. But the second dream has not progressed, and I really think this one's like
Mm.
very like unresolved trauma based.
Well,
And
would you mind if we talked about the first one, like for
yeah,
just a
let's
minute?
do it.
Oh man, like such good imagery. So there's a couple rules about dream interpretation, like just some real good guidelines. In dreams, there's two levels of content. We call it manifest content and latent content. And this is like some old like depth psychology, psychoanalytic research. Manifest content is like your everyday. So if you've got a really busy day at work and you go right to bed after working, you'll probably still dream about your job. That's like basic everyday content. Now, the fun stuff is the latent content. The latent content is that real deep, like shadow work, deep consciousness, deep emotional process that takes place. And so, um, all dreams have both levels. Uh, and that deeper level, the important stuff, the latent content, manifests important too, but it's not as interesting to me. The latent content, though, the rule about it is it's always about yourself. So this is where people will really struggle with like dreams about pregnancy or dreams about their ex or dreams about their crush, right? Or dreams about like a past relationship. It's not actually about that person. It's not that you want to get back with your ex, or it's not that, you know, your crush doesn't like you. It's a symbol for the parts and the characters that are happening deep within inside of you. So if we break this down, like there's this body, there's this person that's been murdered. And so that represents you kind of killing off a part of yourself. And so it really illustrates this war and this tension between you of like, you know, that this older, more mature woman is a part of you, but there's this like little 13-year-old girl who's like in constant conflict with that older character inside of yourself. And so both wants to kill that person, but feels guilty for it at the same time. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to hide this. I've got to hide my desires and my internal conflict. And so where do I do it? Well, I hide it behind the toilet, which makes perfect sense because a toilet is a symbol for stress relief, right? We build up tension in our
Mm.
bladder, we build up tension in our colon, and then we relieve it in our toilet. It's like emotional cleansing. And so you hide it behind the
Wow.
toilet. And then as the dream progresses, as you get older, the police come, which is a symbol for our own feelings of guilt, our own feelings of self-judgment. And so it's your mind just trying to work out this deep, like internal process as you grow and as you change as a human. So that's just a thought, but like, how does that connect with you? Is that like a part of your experience just lately or even when you're 13, 14?
I mean, I think this is absolutely insane because I
Tell me
mean,
about it. Tell me.
honestly, the one thing that I just used to describe part of this dream that I did not realize until we've been talking about it is that I made a statement that she was probably as old as I am now.
Yeah.
And this is truly the first time in my life that I feel the most stable I've ever felt in my whole life, and that I'm creating a life for myself as an adult with a family and a home and a career, and
Yeah.
that I'm 100% capable of being just myself, and I don't have to hide away any part of it like I used to feel like I had to when I was younger.
Mm.
So, I guess, like, I mean, that is amazing. I'm a little curious if you have any thoughts on why when the police would look, there was nothing there. And I'm thinking maybe it's because, like, if through my eyes I am that person now, I'm not the person hiding in the wall. I am
Well,
her.
I think that, and I think the second thing is, and this is, I'm gonna get emotional. This is what is so impactful and powerful about your platform is when the police, which represents your own self-criticism and guilt, when they go and look for that body, nothing's there because you've realized now that there's nothing to be ashamed of anymore. And, like,
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm gonna cry, like, that's the beauty of dreams is they illustrate so powerfully, like, our own self-development, and the whole way, like, even when you're 13 or 14, your deeper consciousness knew the path that you needed to travel, and it was trying to prepare you, "Hey, Courtney, don't worry, this is the way that we're gonna go. We're gonna get through this, like, this is the journey that you're on." And it's like, now that you're there, it's like, yeah, I don't have to be ashamed of those things, the body's not there anymore. They
Yeah.
can look, that judgment can, like, search inside of me for something to be ashamed of, and there's nothing to be ashamed of anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I actually feel super emotional. I was not expecting that to happen on this call.
Uh, dreams will do that to you, man.
Yeah.
I just feel like
Wow.
I'm crying all the time.
No.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah. Wow, it's beautiful. I hear a lot of stuff about toilets, and I hear a lot of stuff about, like, police or being chased or being caught and found out because it's that
Yeah.
own, it's our own sort of self-criticism, self-judgment. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
okay, geez, I'm super curious about the second dream now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, the second dream is still unresolved, and it's
Okay.
come up, so the theme is the same, um, but the context is different, but the person's the same too. So it's
Okay.
about my boyfriend, now husband, and
Mhm.
when in the beginning of our relationship, we were unfaithful to each other,
Mm.
me mainly. And, but at times, I think, I was very active in my borderline. And so, like, I would do things and then but I wouldn't be affected by them or understand how he would be affected by them. But then he would do something, even just like 10% of what I would do. And I had such an emotional reaction to it because I just,
Yeah.
felt like I
Yeah.
was being abandoned. And so my brain really has not let go of these experiences. And so
Mm.
it's a two-part. It's one, when we were really young and before, like, cell phones or when our parents could take our cell phones away.
What?
Crazy. I would try to call his landline, and I would call it. His mom would answer, and she would say, like, "You can't talk to him right now." We were like 15, and
Oh my gosh, what a time to be
so
alive.
I know, and so the first part of the
I
dream
remember that.
is me holding my, like, landline phone at what
Okay.
I imagine to be my grandparents' house where I grew up, trying to
Mm.
dial his phone number, but I don't know it. And it's, like, the only phone number I've ever memorized, but in the dream, I don't know the phone number to dial the number to be able to get a hold of him.
Ooh.
Then I find out it goes from, like, that experience that I used to have in high school to the experiences in college, where then I find out that when I couldn't get a hold of him, he was hooking up with a different person. And so then it goes
Oh,
straight to that. And then the third part of it is it goes to me confronting him about it, which happened a lot of times also, and him
okay.
just denying it, and me knowing that it happened and getting, like, livid that he's not telling the truth. And
Mm.
then at the very end, he is like, fine, you're right. And that's happened so many times. But
Mm.
then I come out of the dream still so emotionally upset. And
Yeah.
I don't like, and I kind of like know it's something I need to work on in therapy, but it's so interesting that it's this exact arc every time in a different way. And it brings up the same amount of emotion and
Yeah.
anger. Yeah.
Well, I make memes about it online all the time, but like when you wake up and your partner cheated on you in your dream and then you're pissed at them the rest of the day.
Yeah, right.
It's such a common experience. Like I think everyone's had that experience at some point, one time or another. So you're definitely not alone in that. There's a couple pieces to it, right? Like, and I think this is a great example of that latent and manifest content that we are talking about. Is like, well, the manifest content, the obvious interpretation is, well, your mind is trying to process a real experience that happened. You know, that was something that did happen in your life. So there's kind of the obvious to it. But then again, we go deeper. And so we look into the latent part of this. And it's like, okay, these experiences, these dreams are really showing you something about yourself. And so in the beginning, you've got this landline, you're trying to punch in the number. Well, phones, especially now, I mean, even more so in our culture now, phones are our communication. They're our tool, they're our resource. And so if you can't punch in a number, a lot of
Mm,
people will struggle in their dreams to dial 911, like they can't call
wow.
911. It's it's a struggle with communication. Like I don't feel like I can express myself accurately. I feel
Mm,
like I really struggle to communicate my heart and my feelings, or to be heard and connected to. And so your brain just will give you this beautiful image of not being able to dial on a phone as an illustration for that feeling, for that emotion.
mm,
So then dream progresses, right? And so you confront, right? You're having this confrontation. Uh, Confrontation and the cheating, while it may have some very literal meaning, most of the time I see it being a real example, and a metaphor for how we don't feel worthy or lovable. And so it has a lot to do with our self-esteem. And most people who struggle with those dreams, about their partner cheating on them, maybe like 10% of the time there might be something going on, but 90% of the time it's illustrating I deep down, if I'm honest with myself, am concerned that I'm unlovable, that I'm not worthy of their love, that I'm not worthy of their attention, and they're going to find someone who's more valuable than me. And so it's our mind trying to make sense of that feeling. And nobody likes to admit that feeling, right? And so usually we kind of hide it and repress it throughout the day. And then when we go to sleep and we're not holding it down anymore, those dreams start to come out because your mind's like, we got to make sense of this crap. Like, we got to make sense of this feeling. And so
right.
then at the end, the confrontation happens and it's like, yeah, it happened. And so it's the struggle inside of you. I don't know. How does that connect with you, or what do you feel when I kind of talk about some of those symbols?
I think that it makes a lot of sense. And I actually think that what's interesting is that it can be translated to like this feeling of being unlovable, because I feel like it's really interesting with me having borderline personality disorder, and right now I'm sort of working on, in my own recovery, being able to show affection and love in the way that I want to. And
Mm,
every other time that I've had these dreams, I've just been like waking up with like all this anxiety and like, I used to like just hold the anger and not say anything. Then I got to the point where I would say something and I would still feel like angry, but I would be like, oh my God, I had this dream about you and it was like terrible. And like, I'm so mad at you. So just so you know, I need a little space. But now I'm at the point where when I have those dreams, I actively show love to him. Like I tell my brain, like, this didn't
mm,
happen. Like when I wake up, I'm like, this didn't happen. And like I love him and he loves me. And so I like kind of love on him a little bit more that day. And I even tell him like that this has happened and that I'm feeling like, I'm trying to tell my brain that like it's okay and it's fine. And so he'll like participate in that with me and just like kind of will be like overly affectionate that next day. And so I feel like it really is, it really, a lot of borderline is feeling unlovable. So not giving
mm.
love or giving and taking it away so quickly. And I think that fact that I'm working on that, I don't know, at least the way I act after the dream now is so different than I used to.
Yeah, and that's like most important thing about it is most people take these very, very literally because they do feel so literal. Like it felt like it actually happened. And so and that's my passion is like when you can understand the language of the unconscious mind, and then use that for personal insight. Oh my gosh. Like it's like checking your weather app before you walk out to know whether you need an umbrella today or not. Like
Yeah.
it should be like that much integrated into our life and that much a part of us. Cause once you understand the language, like you get these valuable, valuable insights to say, oh my gosh, I had a dream about my partner cheating on me. Um, I'm gonna go talk to them and be like, hey, I'm just feeling a little unlovable today. I could use some extra care. Would you mind being there for me?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. How connected and caring of an experience when you can share that and have some insight and then allow someone to love you in that
Yeah,
state of like emotional vulnerability.
right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's really cool. It's really cool. It does make me think of something else that I'm super curious to ask you about. A lot of the research into dreams, especially with bipolar symptoms, well, borderline symptoms. Sorry, BPD and BPD. I get them confused
Yep.
all the time.
I
Same
do too
acronym.
sometimes, yeah.
um, there's a lot of interesting research about they call it dream reality confusion. They kind of make an acronym about it, DRC, dream reality
Mm,
confusion. And so it can be this symptom that comes along with borderline personality, uh, where it can be a little bit difficult to tell the difference between what was a dream memory and what was a real memory, or what was a dream and what was real. So those experiences of someone cheating can feel like it happened in real life. Is that something you experience too? Or I was just curious to get your feedback as someone who experiences those symptoms.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like that is a lot of, kind of what I was referencing when I would say that I would wake up and I would be angry after these, like, cheating
Mm,
dreams, like, my I could feel that my brain and my body took that in as reality, as remember this, have protections against this, and like this is a part of that person. And that like I could feel myself piling on more resentment onto my husband in the beginning of having these dreams.
yeah.
And I really feel like now is the only time in my life that I'm capable of saying, no, it wasn't. Like, let's reduce the physiological response. Let's communicate about what's going on in the brain and let's like make sure that we don't allow this to affect our decisions like for the rest of our lives because we've stored it in this survival part as a fact, as a factual threat.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And what you're saying is reminding me of another study that showed nightmares are very much correlated with emotional self-regulation. So those who struggle to regulate their emotions, very intense emotions or very positive emotions, will have very intense dreams or very intense nightmares. And so it
Mhm.
sounds like the skill and the way that you cope is by regulating your emotions. Let's reduce my physiological response right now,
Yeah.
and that helps you work with these dreams. And that's like right in line with everything that's coming out with the research these days. That makes total sense.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel like I'm really going to need to look more into that specifically because I do feel like my experiences really align right along with what the outcomes of those studies seem to be.
Yeah, that's why I was interested to talk. Is like I wonder
Mm.
what your experience is if this kind of holds true. It also kind of shows that well, again, with the emotional self regulation, another part that comes with it is nightmares, like specifically being a little bit more defined, negative dreams. And
Mm.
so the statistics right now are like 49% of those with BPD experience negative dreams. Like 49% of dreams are negative, where
Mm.
the typical someone without that diagnosis is about 4 to 10%. So you can see 49% versus 4 to 10% is a huge
Mhm.
difference. And it's reminding me of what you said in the beginning, where your husband will just knock right out, go to sleep, sleep through the night, and you're like struggling with these intense emotions that
Yeah.
happen during sleep. Does that sound accurate to you? Like it's a lot of negative stuff when you're sleeping.
Oh my god, yeah, I don't remember the last positive dream I had. I don't know if I've ever had a positive dream that I remembered. ever in my whole life. I mean, and that's maybe really interesting. Maybe all I've had is nightmares.
I mean, from what you're describing, it
That's
sounds like it.
really intense. Yeah, I never
Well, that kind of sucks.
thought about that. Yeah, I don't even know, like, I actually actively right now cannot imagine what a positive dream could be or would look
Oh,
like for me. Like, I have no idea. I don't remember ever having one. That's
wow.
so weird, but it makes sense why I'm
You've
like,
never thought about it until now.
yeah. Well, it also makes sense why I'm just so cynical. I feel like, because I mean, I see the world in a cynical viewpoint, and I guess probably see it too that way when I'm sleeping. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I also think that with borderline personality, it's such a fusion of psychological concepts and physiological concepts, like very deeply ingrained, very difficult to change. And so it would make sense that even when my physiology is supposed to be more relaxed when I'm sleeping, there's no way that I'm going to turn off the potential for threats. And that's going to just have that part activated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, so you're making me think. You're making me think. Um, I wonder if uh throughout your waking life, throughout your waking day, do you often visualize things like very positively, like the best possible outcome and like have a very like kind of optimistic outlook? Is that like would you consider that part of yourself or no? Like you're like I'm going to do my
Absolutely
best, but I'm
not.
thinking about the 15 ways it can go wrong.
Absolutely not. No, it's so negative. And, I've been working on that with my therapist since last November. But yeah, I mean, I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, like really severe. It's like, it's just constant. I'm constantly thinking about
Yeah.
everything that could go wrong. And my ADHD too, it's like I'm so sensitive. I'm so overstimulated all the time that everything just always feels overwhelming and the potential for the worst case scenario.
Oof.
That's just the baseline
Yeah.
how I live my life, which makes sense that I
Yeah.
would then enact symptoms of borderline in my interpersonal relationships if that's how I'm feeling
Hmm.
constantly.
Okay, okay. So some dots are connecting here for me then. Like the way that your dreams are expressing themselves are congruent with the way that you express your personality in your waking life.
Yeah.
Now I've seen some beautiful transformations kind of happen when people start to think of things more positively and not like toxic positivity where we're lying to
Right.
ourselves, but just thinking like, well, okay, I've very easily and quickly identified the 15 ways this can go wrong. Maybe I could think of one nice possible outcome. It's just like adding that to the to the charcuterie board of anxiety that comes with every day. Um, because because one of the things
Mhm.
that we do inside of DreamApp is we have these dream experts, and a lot of the work that they do helping people through their dreams is helping them visualize the way that the dream could end differently or helping them visualize what a positive dream would be like. And through that active imagination, that active fantasy, you'll start to notice that seeps into your dreams and the dreams start to be more positive too, and it starts the healing process. So
Mm.
there's some really good research about that too, about the way that fantasy, someone who can have some positive sort of daydreams or some positive fantasy, it starts to improve those negative dreams and actually lead to some positive dreams as well. So it just makes me curious. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, and I feel like it makes a lot of sense. At least, I feel like I'm just now like starting to be able to work on like the depths of my relationship because it's been so long and was so tumultuous
Mm,
in the beginning. So it makes
yeah.
sense that it's hard for me to sort of shift my view deep in my core right now in that area. But I think in the area of just like generally expressing who I am and being able to tell my truth and my story, and I've thought about myself more positively even, and I feel like that has really contributed to that first dream of like it's changing and that
Yeah.
I would call that a positive dream because it's been so
I would too.
uh like disheartening and scary for so long, and now it's like, "Oh wow, this is okay. Like this is like the best possible outcome actually coincidentally that I could have ever imagined for the end of this nightmare because I'm not in trouble and I'm not hiding anything and it like feels
Mm.
amazing."
Yeah, it does feel good. Yeah, there's nothing you have to be ashamed of anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you've had your first good dream. It's the
Yeah,
resolution to
maybe
that
I
one from
have.
13. Oh, that's really cool. It warms my heart.
Yeah.
I I'm really excited for you, and I really appreciate you being so open and vulnerable about these things because I think everything that you're describing is stuff that I've heard hundreds and hundreds of times. Like everybody who struggles with their dreams and like finds this podcast and finds my page, kind of talks about the same experience. And so recognizing that there's a community who is there to support each other and are experiencing the same struggles, and that there is hope, like that these things can get better. Um, yeah, it's just a little bit of what I hope to bring. So thanks for sharing your
Yeah.
story because I know a lot of people are really connecting with it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so eye-opening. I really like to be on shows where, I get a benefit and I learn something new about myself because I guess that's the journey I've been on since starting my own platform. So, thank you. This has been amazingly insightful and in the best way.
Well, it's been just wonderful to share the things that I'm interested in and to hear your own personal, unique experience of this. Because my dreams are like nothing like yours. They're very different. They're very strange, honestly,
Mm,
because that's my own mental health diagnoses and like my own stuff that I work through with my therapist. And so it's just
mm,
so cool to see the way that each person's unique personality comes out in their dreams because you really get an authentic picture of
mm.
yourself. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing an authentic picture of yourself. I know it means a lot. So,
of course. Yeah, thank you for giving me space to do so.
absolutely. Well, Dr. Courtney Tracy, if you want to plug anything, let people know where to find you. Obviously, at the Truth Doctor on everything is the place.
Yes.
She's got some amazing, amazing content. I was actually watching some of your React videos very recently about all the
Awesome.
shows you go through and like talk about the mental health aspects. They're really, really good. So I encourage anyone to go
Thank
follow
you.
and check it out. But yeah,
Yeah, thank
anything
you.
you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, just, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at _truth_doctor. My YouTube show is The Truth Doctor Show. And then I also have a show on Snapchat, and that's under at Therapist Reacts. So it's a little bit of what Jesse was just talking about. So you can find
Nice.
me on any of those four platforms.
For sure. I'll talk to you soon. Always here. Reach out anytime. But thanks
All
again.
right. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.